Are you looking to level up your author business?
Are you pounding your head against a wall, wondering what your next step should be? Then join me, Daniel Wilcox.
And me, Sacha Black, as we haul ass each week in a bid to level up.
Level up!
Come along for the ride as we delve deep into the business of writing,
Craft,
entrepreneurship,
and every level of the author journey. This is the Next Level Author Podcast.
Hello, Achievers. This is episode 103 of the Next Level Author Podcast, a podcast where we hold each other to account, gripping each other by the very reluctant necks, and track our step-by-step progress as we level up our author business. My name is Sacha Black, and here with me every single week is
Sacha Black.
Yeah, they're not as good version of Sacha.
Yeah, I'm the angel version, yeah. Such an angel.
How are you?
You're
How's
the
your
devil.
week been?
I hate the Week Now Made t-shirts that say Weird Week because like I'm wearing it and I'm like, I feel like all I need to do is like hold it up. It's been
A weird week?
a weird week. Every fucking week is weird. It's yeah, it's been a all over the place week really for many reasons. Number one, the Writers for Ukraine campaign ended. So that wrapped up on Wednesday and Tuesday. Wednesday? What's the date? It wrapped up
I
on
don't
Tuesday.
even know what the fucking day is today, darling. So don't ask me.
So it wrapped up on Tuesday, the 15th of March. We're recording this on Thursday, the 17th of March. And we blew away all of the goals that we originally set, all of the targets, which like makes me very happy. We raised over £14,000 to go over to British Ukrainian Aid to go and help Ukrainian refugees sort of down on the ground and get them food, blankets, hygiene products, all that kind of good stuff, and ease some of the suffering that's going on, which is amazing. We ended up having sort of 360 active authors on the sheet from over 25 countries represented, and the million word challenge became the 2.2 million word challenge. So like that kind of has just swallowed most of what my week has been, just in terms of obviously like focus and making sure that's going. And there's a lot of behind the scenes work just to kind of like keep people rolling, keep people motivated. And it was like running one of my boot camps, but for 7 days, which is nicer because it's a shorter period, but it's more intense because it's a shorter period. So
Huge congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a magnificent achievement. And I hope you're very proud of yourself.
I am. It's one of those things where like I'm very, very happy that we put in the effort and we kind of brought it all together and set it off. None of it would have been anything without all of the people shouting about it on social media and sharing and getting behind the project. So like a big shout out to them, well, to everyone who's been involved in some form or another. And I have sent out sort of like video thank yous and stuff for people that have been involved. But yeah, so that has consumed a lot of the week. And then I also this week informed my ghostwriting clients that I am done. So I'm officially off the books from, I think it's August is my final deadline, which is both an amazingly liberating and also terrifying experience because it does cut 40% of my income, which is quite the chunk that I'm going to have to try and rev back up to make sure that I can, pay bills and stuff. But it's one of those things where it really has come down to health and happiness over like finance, and I'm reassured enough in myself that I know that I'm resourceful to try and find where that gap is missing, like whatever that takes. So I at the end of the day, ghostwriting like was really, really good to get me started. I've learned a lot. I now have pain in my fingers that I'm still trying to work out with the doctors what it is, because apparently it's not even repetitive stress injury. Nor is it apparently RSI is mostly localized to wrists and elbows. So according to some of the people,
but is that the case for writers?
Well, this is what we're finding out. Like he knows what I do. I'm going away for more tests, but also RSI would have indicatory inflammatory markers, and my fingers don't get inflamed; they just hurt. Like, they don't swell, they don't anything else. Like they don't go red; they just ache. It feels much more like, and obviously I don't know this, but it feels like joint deep. So that has been obviously like I'm 99% sure that ghostwriting has contributed to that, and also just my mad sort of productivity when it comes to writing. So
you haven't got like stress fractures. Have they x-rayed you?
Not yet.
You might want to suggest that they x-ray you to make sure it's not a stress fracture.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would be another option, because like people
But
that
would I
do
have that in all 10
sports-
fingers?
No, I didn't know it was all 10 fingers.
It's every single finger and thumb.
Don't know.
Yeah. I mean, still maybe. Who knows? But yeah, like at the minute, the doctor literally said like there's nothing that kind of points to RSI or arthritis or anything like that. So but yeah, health-wise, like I want to write my books. And as of this week as well, I have sacked off is the wrong word, but I've stopped working with my transcriber and I've gone back into typing despite the finger pain, just because I miss it, man. Like dictating with your voice or telling a story with your voice is a very, very different muscle, and it's fantastic for productivity in terms of word output. But the actual process for me at this point, I'm very, very visual. So I miss sitting down and seeing the words appear and manipulating the words and like jumping your eyes 2 lines up just to kind of like check that you're in the flow. And you just don't get that when you dictate.
You're also strategic thinking led, aren't you? Isn't that your number one?
Possibly. I don't remember.
I don't remember. I'll have to have a look. If that's the case, yeah, I'm going to check. I think that typing builds in just those fractional seconds of thinking space in a way that even though you can pause when you dictate, I think it's a more pressured to keep going. I don't know.
Well, I mean, mentally as well, like it's hard enough because I've probably written about, I don't know, 40, almost 50 novels ghostwriting in the last like 3 or 4 years. And it's hard enough knowing that obviously those novels you're not going to get credit for, because, you know, you get paid per word, and obviously it's a part of the deal. Like I'm not knocking it, because it definitely like served when it needed to. But then to have to then dictate for the process for a thing that you're kind of like not quite wanting to do anyway, just adds that extra barrier. And then it gets sent away to the transcriber, so that when it comes back, you kind of don't remember what you've written, and it needs a lot of tweaking. And then in the editing process, like it's just not working out any more fruitful for me at this point. And
yeah, you are strategic thinking led, by the way.
There you go. But it's like I write quite clean first drafts if I type, so I can do that. It might be a little bit slower sort of initially, but it just means that, you know, I'm more confident that that's just one part of the process done, and I can send it and not worry about it. So yeah, that's happened. So it's been quite a few very, very big changes and things going on this week, and I found energy in lots of places. I've had a few like periods of exhaustion, but it's been a weird week. How about you, Sacha?
Well, I am suffering with quite bad headaches this week, which is not great. What else? I got the proof of my novella right here.
Oh, yeah.
Sirens.
Set off the sirens.
I am pointing at it. I then did all of the editor changes on Tray, and then I formatted it. And I have sent off for the covers. However, the designers are very busy, which is a bit concerning, because they were like, can you wait until the end of the month? And I was like, no. So, because it's launching next month. So I was like, definitely not. And at the moment, Ingram Spark is taking like weeks to like, that literally took weeks to get the book proof.
And they should pay like £1,000 for delivery.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping that they can do it quicker, because I'm going to be in a bit of hot bother if they can't. What else? So I've done that. I've had issues with post offices. No fucking post office is either open or like they're unable to send to Korea. And I'm like, why can't you send to Korea? They're like, oh, it doesn't exist. I'm like, oh no, honey, trust me, the country exists. Like, but anyway.
Wait,
so I'm now.
So is there a middle Korea?
No, there's North and South Korea, and South Korea is also called the Republic of Korea.
Gotcha. Okay.
But like, I just had to have very frustrating conversations with postal people who, you know, anyway. And so now I'm having to drive like 20 minutes to a post office that can help me. So yeah, that has been highly irritating. What else have I been doing? I don't know what else I've been doing really. Planning and working on my next course, or the slides for my next course. I'm trying to get that done by the end of the month because I really want to be writing next month. So yeah, I don't know. Like I have been smashing everything because Ellie told me that I had to. So I just do what she says.
Cracking the whip.
Yeah. So yeah, I've done loads, but like loads of little bits and bobs that I needed to just get done. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. Right, where's my running order? I've lost it. Here we go. Level up.
So we are putting out for some more level ups from some people out in the community. And yeah, that's what we've got this week.
Okay,
do you have a level
awesome.
up?
No.
My level up will be Ukraine.
Yeah.
The Writers for Ukraine campaign. Be more specific.
What could my level up be? I don't know. I literally don't know. Oh, I get to interview someone. I'm very excited I get to interview someone tonight who was on my list of people that I wanted to interview, like my big list. Yeah. So that's exciting.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Patreon.
We have them. So we have no new patrons this week, but for anyone who wants to get involved, get some, I was going to say behind the scenes, I guess you kind of do in our live Q&As, which will, by the time it airs, we will have posted up the next few for everyone to jump into. Jump on a live session with myself and Sacha for an hour every month, and also get all of the episodes before they're publicly released. You can go over to patreon.com/nextlevelauthors.
Do you have a notice?
Man, I'm underprepared on this one. I do not at the minute. I've got a few things. Yeah, I've got a few things coming up that aren't quite ready yet. But I will say one thing that I'll push forward is, for people that don't know, I have written a book called The Self-Publishing Blueprint. That is all about how to self-publish a book from start to finish. And that goes even before you start writing, to try and maximize your chances for whatever your individual success is. So you can get that on Amazon, Kobo, wherever books are sold.
Awesome. What have you enjoyed this week?
I don't know what this week is. I don't know. Like, I feel like I could say the Writers for Ukraine campaign again, and that would be enough. Like, I've enjoyed seeing everyone come together, like the messages for people in support of obviously trying to help Ukrainian refugees. I didn't realize how many designers that are involved in the indie book community that are based out in Ukraine. So to kind of really see like the help going directly to people within the community has been sort of really nice. And then the other thing as well, obviously I've got the little doggo who's currently asleep beside me, and she's been getting me out of the house several times a day and been a nice little companion on the days where I guess where I get to sit down and do nothing. That hasn't happened this week. But yeah, it's nice to have kind of like another person in the house.
So the thing that I enjoyed was a surprise birthday gift. So my wife in secret flew my dad over from the Netherlands, and it's so weird because all week I was like, oh, like what if my dad just turned up? Wouldn't that be cool? And of course I was like, oh yeah, but he's never going to do that. And then he did, and I just completely broke down, and Chloe took a video. And it was very much like, you know, when soldiers come home and then all their like wives and mums are just like sobbing and everyone's sobbing, and that's what it was like. And I literally like wailed because I was just so surprised to see him. So that was lovely. And then we went to London. We had a lovely day in London. Yeah, and it was a really nice spontaneous weekend.
Because how long has it been since he's been in the country to see you?
Well, this is the first time he saw our house, and we've been in this house almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he ever came to Stevenage, so that would be 3 years. I reckon maybe 5 years since he came to the UK.
It's a big deal.
So yeah, it was a very long time. And obviously I saw him in October, but before that it was like 2 3/4 years since I'd seen him. So, you know, even though I saw him for a couple of days in October, it wasn't enough, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, Okay, any comments on last week's question?
We had some quite big comments from some of our wonderful patrons. So the question was, how can writing change the world? And the first comment was Shane, who says, through writing, readers get to experience a range of characters who are different from them. Through reading, we have the opportunity to be exposed to different values, cultures, socioeconomic backgrounds, etc., than our own. The key thing, though, is that works of literature show is humanity is a shared experience with a lot of commonalities. In short, writing connects us with others in a way that little else can. And just off of that, like, I can't remember what book it was, but there was a Stephen King book that I remember reading the intro to, and he literally talks about how reading is time travel. And he was literally like describing where it was that he was sat while he was writing in such vivid detail that you could almost like time travel back to the point of where he was writing. And I just love that kind of like mental connectivity. Ara says, I'll try not to write an entire essay for this question. You failed. The first part of my answer is that I'm just blown away by the effort from the writing community with the Helping Ukrainian project. With writing as a common ground, it feels like we're unstoppable. I find writing so powerful in countless ways. As a popular character from said unnamed author said, words are capable of inflicting pain and remedying it. From a simple story that makes someone happy to a didactic story that makes you think and question the way you see the world, writing can have as little or as large an impact as you can imagine. Imagination is the limit. You can engage with a character on a personal level, join them on a journey, and find you learn lessons from them you'd never have come across in your own life. You can leave a legacy behind you with people learning from your point of view or teachings centuries after you died. Or you could be an author who sells so few books that reaches a couple of readers who are so profoundly impacted by your writings that you give them some meaning to life. And then a final one from Janelle, who says, I'd like to make a book recommendation to illustrate how writing can change the world. The Good Ally by Nova Reid. Nova is an incredible anti-racist educator, activist, and author. Her book is a guided anti-racism journey from bystander to changemaker. Her primary audience is white people like me who are liberal, progressive, and want to know how they can proactively tackle racism. Spoiler alert, it starts by looking inwards and interrogating your own biases, privileges, and racism, which Nova explains is unavoidable if we've grown up in a country such as the UK. She has taught me that racism is much more than an overt act of hate committed by a horrible person over there. It's everyday racism that we all play a part in upholding. I'll tell you, it's an uncomfortable and confronting read. It has made me look at parts of myself I don't want to, but it is incredible. Nova challenges us readers, but does so with compassion, love, and kindness. It's all framed around what she calls collective healing. If we unlearn our own shit, a lifelong process, we are less likely to cause harm to others by perpetuating racism, and we will be more honest, vulnerable, courageous humans in general. She supports you as you read with challenges that might come up for you, such as shame spirals. She weaves in self-care as she has a mental health background. I'm trying to do it justice in the comment, but basically buy the book and experience Nova's unique, cheeky, warm, powerful writing style, an example of how writing can change the world. I love that.
What was it called again?
It was called The Good Ally by Nova Reid, and I'm sure we'll pop a link in the show notes for that.
Excellent. Okay, question of the week.
Challenge.
Oh,
I want my level up challenge. I did a thing this week.
okay. Quarter 1 challenge.
So my things, I mean, I'm going to have to tweak these slightly, but I believe these should be forgiven. So Dan will dictate two novels. I have dictated one. I'm halfway through writing the second. Launch a survey. I'm in the process of putting the questions together with the aim of getting that out by the end of March. Write 3 short stories. I have written 2 now, and then launch a podcast. Done.
I think Dan's going to be doing a forfeit.
On which part?
Dictate. I don't know. Are you going to get another short story in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Short stories are easy, mate. I can knock those out in like an hour.
Okay. Sacha will read a minimum of 5 Sapphic books. Done. Implement outsourcing. Done. Check off 5 things off the new business plan. I actually double checked that. I am way over that. So
Beautiful.
That is excellent. Yeah. And funnily enough,
Okay.
I was just like, oh my God, it's nearly the end of the quarter. I hope that I am getting excited for planning quarter 2.
Yeah, because you didn't get a proper chance to plan this quarter, did you? Because of
I didn't get a
the
chance to plan
shitstorm.
this. Yeah, and that's probably reflective of the fact that this quarter's been a bit of a clusterfuck as well. So, okay, question of the week.
It'd be great to have a jingle in here, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. We should have a little jingle or like a drum roll. Anyway. What do you do when you struggle to write a story? Wow, that is.
Well, no, so I've got an answer jumped up immediately.
I don't struggle. If you say that, I will slap you next time I see you.
I didn't. So the answer that pops up to me, and that has popped up into my head.
I knew it.
No, I mean, like, there are times when wording is harder. There are times where wording is easier. Depends on your mental state, where you're sort of, how full your creative bucket is, all that kind of stuff, how prepared you are, how outlined, everything else. Like, I know that I definitely am a person that can get to the page and make the words happen, like, without excuse when I need to. On the flip side of that, the times when it is the hardest is often because I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I haven't thought enough about what the bigger picture of it all is. So I can write, but it might be shit, and it might not be informed by actually what I'm trying to write in the greater whole of things, especially when it comes to novels. Like short stories, I can very much like sit down and write a short story. It's not, because short story for me is experimentation, it's catharsis, it's just writing the stuff that I want to write in a short time frame. So I don't really, like, I know the structure of a short story enough that I can hit the beats, but then I just improvise it on the fly. Like, I probably give about maybe 10-15 minutes thought before I go into a short story, just to kind of get it done and get it out. But then, like, one thing to remember is that the Other Stories podcast was launched in April 2016. We had to write a short story every month, all four of us, when we were starting it out. And at this point, I've probably written maybe 60 or 70 short stories in the last 6 or 7 years. So I am at this point fairly practiced in short stories. When it comes to novels or bigger works or anything that I kind of get stuck on, it normally is me. If I do have a time where I'm going, these words don't feel right, I will step back. I will look more at the outline and try and like remind myself of what the greater whole is, and like think a bit more. Maybe the character's not as fleshed out as they need to be. Maybe their motivation isn't clear enough. Maybe I'm not sure where that puzzle piece fits in with the larger collective. And I do give myself a bit of time to just stop and think and percolate and let that happen. But then the answer that actually sprang into my head the minute you said that was read. If I get stuck, it's normally, I don't know how to say it. Like, it's normally like I'm not feeling the words, or I just need that extra reassurance that I'm writing in a manner that I'm happy with. And for some of that, like, obviously I'm inspired by certain authors. There are certain styles that I really like. Like, I'm a huge fan of Richard Layman's writing style. Arguably, like, a lot of his stories are very archaic in how they deal with, like, mostly women, which isn't ideal. But the actual way that he writes and the way that he constructs sentences, it's very simple, it's very clean, it's very non-padded, and you can tell a story and you can lose yourself in a story and flip the pages very quickly. So his writing style is a big inspiration for me. So it might be if I'm writing a horror story and, you know, there is a point where I'm not quite feeling the rhythm, I'll just pick up a book and I'll read, or even if it's just a page or two, just to kind of go, okay, like, I'm kind of on track with how I want this to feel. Because lots of different authors, and I think we've covered this in some previous episodes, but like Richard Layman, I love the construction of his prose. Ray Bradbury, I love just the kind of like purple nature and the very sort of etheric way that he writes sometimes, like sometimes a bit too much, but I like some of those styles. Nick Cutter is fantastic at senses and making you really sort of experience a world outside of just sight. And so I go back to just different books, and I will read passages, and I will just try and inspire myself with the stuff that I'm almost trying to emulate, and then put that down in my voice and continue writing. But mostly so as I say, it's not that, well, I don't ever get stuck. If I need to write, I do write. But also, I think a big part of that is I just give myself permission to write shit, which is something that I really try and like push with the people in the Activated Authors group. Is like, there is nothing more powerful than having finished that first draft, because you then know that you have a packaged story that you can then, you know, shave bits off of, add bits on. Like, it's that sandcastle analogy of the first draft is scooping just sand into a bucket. You turn it over, then you're like, okay, I'm going to add a flag here, I'm going to shave a bit off here, I'm going to, you know, make it into what you want it to be. And so I think I have built up that mentality with my first drafts, where it's just like, just get the fucker down. Like, it won't be perfect. And actually this week, the short story that I wrote is part of what will go into the Other Stories podcast's Halloween serial this week, this year. And I just, it was 1,700 words, and I just wrote it from start to finish, just kind of spammed it out. But because it's centered on other writers and what they're doing, that was a real challenge, because the character that I had is very specific. It has to fit within these other puzzle pieces. So I had to first make sure that because I did sit down to write it and then realize I didn't know how old this character was. I didn't know like where they were from. So I then had to have those discussions first before I was like, okay, let's do this justice. And as I was writing it, I got to a point where I was like, this isn't the right word, but I just need to put a synonym for this down to carry on. And so the first draft is messy. I shot it over to Luke, who's doing a lot of show running of that kind of serial, just to say, like, is the gist of the story okay? Like, forget the specifics of words, because words can be tweaked. Is the story okay? And he came back and said, yeah, the story's sort of spot on. And I'm like going through and editing now just to clean it up. But it is that mentality, I think, of if you're really, really stuck in your words, and I'm not saying this is the only reason, but if you're really, really stuck in your words, like a big part of that may be that you're just putting too much pressure on that first draft because you want it to be perfect. And the truth is that most of my work will go through a minimum of 3 or 4 edits before it gets anywhere near where I'm happy with. And that first draft is messy and it is chaotic and it's not perfect. And there are people in there that shouldn't be. And there are places in there that aren't well described. And there is dialogue that is unnatural. And that is a first draft. It's because you can't know what your story is until you've reached the end. Because was it you that told me about the dropped glass ball analogy? Yeah. Just that idea of holding a glass ball when you're looking at it and thinking this is going to be my story, dropping it, shatters in pieces on the floor, and the best thing we can do is try and reconstruct that, and it will never be perfect, but it will be yours. Yeah. So that's my little monologue.
Yeah, I think I really needed that reminder.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for that. I don't like writing shit first drafts, but also I don't really like editing. So this is a problem because I don't like editing. And I don't like writing shit first drafts, which makes it very hard to get to the end of a draft. So yeah, and that's really helpful. So my answer to what do you do when you struggle is it depends why I'm struggling. So I try to get to the root cause of why I'm struggling. So like sometimes it's because my creative well is dry. God, that made me jump. Sometimes it's because sometimes it's because I've messed up something earlier in the story, or sometimes it can be because I'm really fucking tired and it's really hard to be creative like I can edit tired. I really struggle to draft tired. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It's like a different kind of, like I can edit all fucking day long, but if I'm tired, it will be like slug pace trying to get words out. So that is quite often an issue. And then sometimes it can be psychological. So like maybe there's a psychological fear there, or maybe there's like the pressure thing that's definitely so true. And I think I'm going to write on my desk, just write a shit first draft. Because I definitely put way too much pressure on myself, expecting things to be perfect on the first draft. So yeah, that is a good reminder. What else do I do when I struggle? Sometimes I do things with my hands. So like I will just write like chapter summaries on Post-its, just the action of writing the summary again of what the chapter is. Like it's something about that physicality of using my hand, which is connected to my brain. I know that sounds like, of course it is, but like it's that connection that really helps me. Also because I really like writing a book for me is definitely like doing a puzzle. And so having those Post-its that I can then
I could not deal with your writing process.
physically move around really helps me. I need to go back and listen to the what is your writing process, because you just write from start to finish, don't you?
Yeah.
Are you a pantser?
I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being pants and 10 being plot, I'm about a 3 or a 4. Like I need to know a couple of specifics and then I'm off to the races. But I almost view it as I'm writing, it's kind of like I'm watching a film inside my own head. And it's like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if this character did this? And then that would be like a twist in some way. And
so that's a really interesting thing about that, is that I really struggle. Another way that I struggle is if I can see the scene in my head, but there's a disconnect between seeing it and being able to write it. Like that is the scariest kind of problem for me, because I don't know what the problem is, because if I can see it, like I don't normally write scenes that I can't see visually in my brain. So then that's the scariest type of struggle for me, because I'm like, oh God, like, I don't know. Anyway,
my process is like being sat around a campfire and you can see where like a house is for warmth and you want to go to bed. And you've got all your friends around you and you're like, okay, guys, we're going to walk into that house and we're going to go to sleep. And you go, okay. And then everyone just wanders off. Like it's a short distance, but they all go into the forest. But at the end of the night, they all end up in the house.
yeah, like I don't know. How do you know what to write if you don't know what to write? Like, I don't understand that.
So I know the key thing that I need to know is what the main character is doing. Everything else is optional.
I just don't understand. I have to know what I'm going to write before I write it. Otherwise, how do I know what to write? I don't understand pantsers. Like, and the funny thing is as well, like, have you heard of Ellen Brock?
Mm-mm.
So she's done this thing called the 4 types of writers, and she puts everything on 2 continuums. So plotter and pantser, and then methodological versus intuitive. And then you can have, we can put the link in the show notes. And she's just finished the series. So because of those continuums, you get 4 different types. So you get like methodological plotter, methodological pantser, intuitive plotter, intuitive pantser.
Intuitive pantser.
Yeah, that's what you are for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what I am. But interestingly, I did not expect to come out the way that I've come out. So I'm actually a methodological pantser. Would you fucking believe?
Yes.
I would not have believed that. Like, I swear that I always thought that I was a plotter, and I'm not. So this is the interesting thing, right? Like that video describes me to a T, in that we very much struggle to say, like, we don't categorize how we're working. So I'm never just working on the first draft or the second draft. I'm like working on the story, because some things will be in the third draft and other scenes I won't have written or whatever. And she talks about the fact that we build stories up, and I was like, oh my God, that is exactly what I do. And she talks about how fast drafting a skeleton draft is really good for this type of writer. And I was like, look at that. That's what I found last year or the year before, or whatever it was. And then other things like that we should not do anything, that we should not have to do anything. She was like, if editing will help you, even though you're 30% of the way through, do that. She was like, if going back to paper will help you, do that. If you know, I don't know, jumping to a different part of the story will help, do that. And she was like, your process of all of the writer types, your process is chaos and the most fluid. Like, that is how she described it. And I was like, that is definitely my process. Like, I would describe my process as chaos.
Yeah, I mean, you are an avid outliner. You are a massive studier.
Except that I'm not, and that's the interesting thing, because I only get partway through an outline before I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to start writing.
Here's the point: you have to have the outline in process first, because you've just gone through and like resketched like an entire outline of stuff. But then, what is your brand?
What do you mean? Rebel.
You are
so I don't
rebel.
fucking pay attention to it.
You
anyway.
outline, and then you rebel against your own outlines. But at least then you start with some kind of structure. Because even with the last few books, you've mentioned that like you get to the end of that draft and it still needs a lot of work, because you haven't stuck to that original outline. But then you go in different directions and make it work. So
that's exactly what she said. She was like, these types don't ever fully outline. And she was like, if you do fully outline, you'll often find a lot of resistance to getting the book done. She was like, but if you can, like, she was like, sometimes you'll want to do a bit more plotting than not. And so she was like, you know, doing a very high level outline, you know, like I say, I've outlined, like, we're talking about some post-its on a page. That is the extent of my
1,000 more than I do.
No, well, of course, because you're a complete pantser. But you know, like, and the other thing is that is literally putting it in order in my brain. Otherwise, it's so chaotic that I can't. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I've been fascinated by that video and like all of the things that she taught, and I've literally watched it. I think I'm on my 7th watch, because it fascinates, like, and I forget things and I go back and I need reminding that I have permission to do it this way.
Well, yeah, especially like because you've written enough books now that you kind of start to understand where it is that you need to sit on that spectrum.
But I hate the chaos. Like, I hate that is how I write a book. It really annoys me that it's so chaotic. Like, that is the part of me that likes the structure, that is just craving for a more like systematic process, but I don't think I'm ever going to get one, which means I'm going to constantly live in chaos, which I
Question
hate.
for
I
you.
hate chaos. Yeah.
Have you skeleton drafted this, whatever you're working on at the minute?
I have skeleton drafted sent, but not fully, because this is the other funny thing. I always say that I get stuck around the 70% mark, and she was like, in the video, you'll get stuck between 20% and 60%. And I was like, oh, I get stuck at 70, but like still, she was like, you will get stuck in the draft. She doesn't say that for any of the other writers. And I was like, oh my God. So like, I definitely am this writer. But yeah, have I skeletoned it? I did skeleton, and then I got stuck. So I stopped. Yeah, so because I started writing on it again the other week, I rewrote the beginning and I got a much better beginning this time. And then I was like, why am I doing this when I fucking know the beginning is going to change again anyway? So I've put the beginning aside, and I'm now like, okay, I have to go back to where I was, like trying to finish skeleton and slapping it down, and then like padding it out and like jumping all over the place. So
yeah, you did add a very, very good point there as well. So, you know, if you are stuck on a draft, it's not always because of the writing. So you mentioned, obviously, like when you're tired, it becomes very, very hard to do so, especially like there's a difference between sort of physically tired and mentally tired.
Yeah.
But I mean, on top of that, like I've had people in sort of one-on-ones or groups, and they're talking about, I'm really struggling to get the words down, and you peel it apart, and like it could be as simple as you are hungry and you don't have the energy, you haven't drunk enough water. It could be that you need to just go out for a walk, clear your head, get the body moving. It could be that, you know, there's stuff going on in your personal life that is massively demanding your bandwidth that makes it very difficult to get to the page. I know I've definitely been there sort of in the past couple of years where like big heavy life events happen and you're like, why can't I write? And it's like, it's because you have to deal with this stuff. Like it's not as simple as just sitting down to the page and just making it happen. Like sometimes you do have to consider what it is in life as well that is potentially peeling you back, and that like the good thing for me about writing is it always feels like that place of control for me. It's a place where I'm consistent, I can turn up, I can do the thing. But sometimes there is stuff in life, sometimes it's your own sort of physical wellness that slows you down and makes things more difficult. So it's worth trying to be conscious of some of the other factors as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love this question.
Well, yeah, I thought it was I nearly asked two other questions, so I'm glad that I asked this one now, because I feel like I've had a bit of an arse kick and a reminder that like I can just get the fucking words down, like any which way you can, get them down. So
but it's important to like emphasize as well that this does happen with a lot of writers every time you start a new book. Like there's always that, I want this to be perfect, and we forget that the first draft is the first draft.
Yeah brilliant. Okay, well, that's it. So question of the week for the audience is, what do you do when you're struggling to write a story? And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hungry for more?
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of my angelic accent and Dan's dulcet tones on our other podcasts.
For more of me, check out the Activated Authors podcast.
For more of me, listen to the Rebel Author podcast. We'll be back next week holding each other to account as Dan
and Sacha
become
next level
authors.
So I'm not full of energy today.
Carry us both as per usual.